Um, Good morning or good afternoon, since this online, so it depends on where you are. Um, I'd like to welcome you all to this seminar. In fact, this is a part of the seminar series of Koç Spring 2023. But this semester, we organized this seminar series in the context of Broader. Broader is a twinning project focusing on the aiming at linking the urban studies and migration studies funded by the European Commission. What we are trying to do in this project is just to see the interaction between the migration and urban studies. Three institutions actually involved in this project: Koç University, at the University of Pompeu Fabra at the University of Amsterdam. This is the first seminar, as I said, that in this seminar series, and I'm pleased to host our colleagues, Ricard Zapata-Barrero. He's also a part of the broader project. Ricard we'll talk about with the title Urban Resilience, Migration, Governance at the Mediterranean Region Building. Many of us actually know Ricard, but just briefly, I'd like to introduce him. He's a full professor in the Department of Political and Social Sciences, University of Pompeu Fabra in Barcelona. His research focuses on the contemporary issues of the liberal democracy in the context of diversity, especially relationship between the democracy, citizenship, and immigration. He is the director of GRITM. This is a research group, interdisciplinary research group on immigration. Also, he's the director of the master program in migration studies in the same university. He's a member of the IMISCO. Actually, he's the member of the board of directors of the IMISCO. IMISCO is the largest network of the research centers in working on the migration issues. And he is also chair in the same organization. IMISCO is chairing the External Affairs Committee. Ricard, I'd like to give the floors to you. Actually, we are, as I said, we are very happy to have you in this seminar series and as the first speaker. Yes, floors is yours, Ricard.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor for the presentation, and I am a bit excited because I perfectly know that as a partner also Broader, this is the first I would say public activity of Broader, and then I am just breaking the ice of what we are trying to work together. And very pleased to start with sharing with you what I am trying, we'll say, to cook after several years working on different research related, of course, to the city and local town, as I will frame it. I am pleased now to share with you what I am trying to do. Linking and putting in conversation different work that I have been doing in the last couple of years. And I am fully aware that maybe I would lack of more time and maybe better articulated what I will show, but I perfectly also aware that this is a work in process, and then pleased to share with you and to receive some feedbacks after my presentation. And thanks for those that are attending and also the seminar to be there. As I say, what I want to present is a conversation of four last works that I have been doing. Are all related to, I will say, multi-scale thinking. That means that trying to analyze urban and governance of migration from different scales other than the state, basically the regional and the city. And there's 4 works. Just to let me present some of them, and just to frame what I will follow. I will start with the Mediterranean thinking in migration studies, a methodological regionalism approach, where I try to incorporate the idea that the Mediterranean needed to be incorporated as a category of analysis in migration studies. There are many and plenty of huge literature, of course, of Mediterranean migration, but there is not an articulation from an epistemological point of view of this literature, and this is the main effort that I did there, incorporating what I called the methodological regionalism, or to think the Mediterranean scale of analysis in migration studies, and try to collect all the literature that has been dispersed in Mediterranean migration. This was the first effort of regional thinking, I will say also. The second one, where I introduced directly the city, is the new scale of migration governance in the Mediterranean. Here I incorporated the category of regional cities, and the basic idea is how Mediterranean city can shape a new form of region making, and how this can represent also a shift in migration governance towards a more, I will say, a decentralized Mediterranean migration governance. The basic purpose, I would say, was twofold. The first one is to incorporate the city and agenda within Mediterranean studies also. And at the same time, to see that Mediterranean region making needs the city a perspective to relaunch basically the process of Mediterranean building process that has been in the hand of the states. And this article is also in the framework of the Barcelona process, and I do some overview of failure of the Barcelona process as the first regional policy frame of a European Union, as we know. These 2 articles are at the level of regional. And then there are 2 more that are the level of urban cities, very different ones. The first one, I will say very different one in terms of perspective, but of course, both try to incorporate the category that will be one of the key category now of urban resilience. The first one is in ethnic and racial studies, where I just present for the first time the category of urban resilience applied to Mediterranean migration studies. This is done for the first time. I will say there is a huge literature, of course, on urban resilience. We will have an opportunity to speak about that, but not applied to human factors like migration and migration governance. And that this is one of the efforts of this article to incorporate these from a theoretical point of view, the category of analysis, but also to test it for the first time also in 3 very different urban regimes. I did interviews and fieldwork in Barcelona, Marseille, and Tunisian cities. As I will show the outcome of that, maybe it is better to stop now, but The basic idea was also to test this urban resilience approach in 3 cities and following also a specific methodology that come from Weberian methodology. I'm very pleased to try to use this ideal type methodology that often is appears in many courses, but is not applied. I was surprised to see that there is not a lot of application of this methodology today. And then the fourth and last one is urban resilience and migration governance in Tunisian unstable political environment. And here I deal with the category of urban resilience, but basically taking into account what I will call in few minutes the impact. Urban resilience can be approached looking for the drivers. Why urban resilience? For the mechanism, how the strategy of urban resilience happens in practice. We will speak about that, but also the impact. And from this point of view, the impact of urban resilience in Tunisian unstable political environment was very interesting because I have been even myself in this process from democracy to autocracy to more autocracy today, taking into account that most of the revolution, I will say, of the Tunisian revolution is done through the cities. And the pressure of the cities toward the state has been very strong. And then from this point of view, the urban resilience is directly unrelated to explain, or at least to understand the process of democratization and autocracy in Tunisia. And then this was the opportunity also to show that this category of analysis could also be analyzed in terms of impact. Of course, the impact go beyond also democracy and autocracy. For instance, the process of decentralization of state, the process of looking for a new term of cooperation between different governance bodies apart from the state belong also to this kind of impact. But let me pursue, because this has been the opportunity to show the four works, but not to frame the debate. Just to show, because okay, I have something on my screen, but now it's better. I will say the framework debate could be presented as follows. Today, cities are under multiple pressures because they might provide policy responses to global challenges, but they are limited governance capacity. And when cities incorporate pressure into their one agenda and this pressure become a constitutive part of the governance strategy, they become resilient. Resilience means that cities are aware that there are pressure and build strategies to solve this pressure, often coming from the state, but also coming from outside, as we will see. And of course, this initial idea of multiple pressure related to resilience is not new. Because there is a vast literature on urban resilience, but most of the literature deal with climate change, natural disaster, including terrorism, poverty, and even revolutionary movement. If you put urban resilience in Google, you will have a very clear picture on how there is a huge literature, but you will also see that there is practically or nothing about the application of this category of analysis toward natural factors, from natural factor to social factor, like migration. This is where I enter myself. Migration as a social stressor for cities, that also cities become aware of the limited governance capacity to deal with migration issues. It is here where my research begins, I will say. and how these also resilience becomes also very important for the future of the cities. And then from this point of view, resilience is related to capacity building, of course, and limited power of that. And then this pattern has been very evident in the mass influx of Syrian refugees from 2015, but also with the Ukraine today. There are many newspapers that with time I can show where that say cities are at the limit of the capacities. This kind of message was also very important for me to justify the pertinence of this category of analysis. The driving force is that for many of resilience actions, this was one of the questions that I put, I formulate also to some policymakers, where I say, well, if nothing is done, what will happen? Okay, but if nothing is done, then increase spatial slums, precariousness, territorial segregation, discrimination, racism, increased coexistence uncertainty, and even xenophobia, urban hostility toward migrants. And then from this point of view, this question was very illuminating for me, because the strategy of urban resilience, of increasing capacity of cities, become here very important for the action of the cities, and as a pro-action and preventive policy. And then resilience as a category allows us to frame extreme situations, human situation, produce it also in controversial political and social environments. And this represents all the chronic stress that cities are living in policy structures, in healthcare, housing, education, employment, and also fighting of the city to ensure human rights condition and even a livable environment in spite of the state regulations and so on and so forth. Okay, this effort of the cities to increase their capacity for governance is one of the key of resilience. Of course, the building of governance capacity is not isolated practice, but since it necessarily entails breaking current political and legal boundaries. This is what interests me. Also, and also multi-scalar alliances with a multiplicity of public and private actors, and even involve I will say new terms, this is what interests me, new terms of cooperation and coordination outside the realm of states, who traditionally dictates the term of cooperation and coordination. I will put within this trend many debates, sanctuary cities, refugee cities, solidarity cities, welcome cities, and even rebel cities, and I can go on in this direction, but all this branding of cities are, for me, expression of resilience. They try to build new narrative in front of the state and so on and so forth, but they are showing the need of autonomy building, but also the need of city agency. And this is expression of resilience. And then let me follow also and frame this first, I will say, introduction within the local town and multi-scale thinking in migration studies, which is something that I am working on the last years. Of course, in urban studies, they maybe don't speak about local town. They prefer maybe to speak about new localism. But the idea is almost the same. And within the broader project, this also means that we have similar concerns in terms that migration governance and city agency is becoming really a feature of the 21st century. And it has a political and epistemological dimension. The political one is that we are going from a state-centric to a urban-centric approach of migration governance. And also from an epistemological point of view, of course, it is related to knowledge production and the lens of the urban agency provide us new ways of thinking migration governance that were absent in the state approach. And then from this point of view, I will say that in the debate, the very recent debate that we have, there are at least two hypotheses that are already, I will say, accepted and undisputed. And I begin my reflection with these two hypotheses. The first one is that cities are becoming actors. This is quite new because cities are always been seen as a unit, administrative or with some political decision making, but also always dependent on in a hierarchy of power with the state, and then from this point of view, the fact that the cities are building a new agenda completely separated from the state and so on is something that belongs to this new pattern, I will say, claiming for more autonomy and power to face challenges that are directly related to globalization processes. And then this kind of global local hypothesis, barbers and so on are already accepted. Cities must address challenges that are beyond their own capacities. This is the fact. And this is provoking the second hypothesis, the idea of separation of the construction of the city and state relation. As we know this relation before, most of the resilient cities are becoming not only building the one agenda, building new policies and so on, but sometimes entering in tension with the states, a narrative of control and so on. Think about solidarity cities, think about sanctuary cities and so on. There is some kind, I speak myself, of rebellion of cities against states' dictates on management. And this rebellion is related to capacity building of governance and is related to resilience. This is an expression of resilience for me. And then from this point of view, there's two hypotheses, the global, local, and the decoupling process are already there. Of course, cities are becoming, I will say, even new geopolitical players in international migration, increasing mobilization, networking practice, transmunicipal relations, city diplomacy, all the issues that fall within the broader, I will say, are there. And then there are many questions that we can pose. How can urban government cope with uncertainties, stress, risk engendered by population growing, social discrepancy, undocumented, excluded migrants, from the urban system, legal resources, competencies. Of course, when we speak about governance capacity, we are speaking about legal resources, competencies, and so on. And also, I will say, structure of cooperation and coordination that are becoming very different from the state. The state are losing, I will say, most space of controlling the term of cooperation. Cities are relating each other more often against the state narrative. This is completely new, I will say, and that's for me expression of resilience. Of course, when we are incorporating resilience thinking, I will say that we are in the relation between the tension between capacities of the cities, the constraints, and their autonomy. I will say this is basically the focus that I am trying to develop. The management of these pressures become a regulative principle for most of the governance of migration. When you speak about policymakers and you ask them about the pressure that they have to deal with governance issues, most of them told you that this is consubstantial to their task to deal with this pressure. And then from this point of view, as a regulative principle, it becomes very important. And this is where resilience thinking, I will say, start. Of course, I will not, because of time, I feel that I am speaking now for 20 minutes. And then, but it is true that urban resilience thinking is not new. That's belong to a long tradition from the 70s. The persistence of systems and the ability to absorb change and disturbance and still maintaining some relationship with the population is part of the definition of resilience. I adapt most of the definition of resilience to migration governance and city. But here is just to show you that first, resilience is not new, but when it has been used as a urban resilience, even there is a handbook, of urban resilience in Routledge. There is nothing about migration governance there. There is nothing. And then from this point of view, most of the perspective of urban resilience has been related to resources, to natural factors, basically, but not to human factors like migration. Now, this is where my proper research begins. There are a lot of books on resilience, but all related to most of them are related to climate change and so on and so forth. And then from this point of view, the overview shows that there is a need to articulate this research focus on resilience in urban governance. I'm probably here. I will focus on the third point there of the summary review. I already say that we are going for natural to social factor, and then there are very few works on dealing with social factor of urban resilience. But also, that's become maybe much more a transformative dimension of them, because most of the resilience literature, when they deal with climate change, the idea is that a system incorporate a pressure to keep the situation as it was before the pressure. And then from this point of view, there is a certain literature that speaks that when resilience and urban resilience is related to climate change and so forth, and even sustainable development, they are related to sustainability, and sustainability are by definition a conservative concept. It's sustainability is a conservative, is to keep and to remain things as they were before the pressure, before the situation that caused resilience. But there is not a transformative dimension that is operationalized. And I will say here, there is a very different situation when we apply urban resilience in migration governance, because I will say that the transformative dimension works much more than the conservative one, because And here there is a certain argument that I develop in different in one of the work that I present at the beginning, where the transformative dimension means that human resilience could be a driven factor today of human transformation because of migration, and I'm putting in tension traditional ways of organizing even territorially the different governance. And then from this point of view, this transformative dimension is very important. And also, and here comes with relation with the Mediterranean, I would say most of the literature is use urban governance in descriptive terms, but not incorporate the normative reflection. The normative reflection begins when we wonder why why cities are becoming resilient, why they develop strategies for capacity building, why they are building a different agenda from the states, why cities are networking together for solidarity or for whatever branding. And then I would say, behind that, there are some claim of a normative reflection on urban justice behind that, which is not present in urban resilience in other settings as climate change and so on. Even if we can speak about climate change and justice and so on, but not in the literature on urban resilience. And then from this point of view, the basic idea here that I incorporate is that cities are becoming much more active today. They are claiming autonomy, they are claiming power, they are cooperating each other and framing new terms of cooperation and so on. They are claiming more capacities for governance in terms of how to deal with migrants that are in regular situation and so on and so forth. I will show you some areas of resilience in particular, but most of them, when you ask why you are doing that, basically principles of equality, of human rights, of cohesion come to the fore. And then this principle of urban, what I label principle of urban justice, becomes the main justification of resilience. And then from this point of view, this is completely new, I will say. This is what I will say migration studies could provide to the urban resilience literature. And having done the overview, I'm going now to the empirical analysis and the results. I think I will need more, maybe 10 minutes. I don't know if I am on the time frame. Yes, somebody coordinating the, yes?
Yes.
10 minutes, yes, it's possible. Okay, thank you. Okay, let me go now directly to the theoretical reflection. I have an empirical also application in three cities, three very different urban regimes, Barcelona, Marseille, and Tunisian cities. When I ask for the drivers, I am asking about for the factors that provoke a resilience. So why cities are rebel today in this terms? So why cities are becoming active? Why cities are building the one agenda completely different from the states? All these patterns of a city agency need to be analyzed in terms of why, in terms of factors. And here we discover that there are exogenous, in terms of system, we speak about exogenous, or external factors, state regulation, the state pressure are there. They don't, the state don't leave the cities to decide in terms of urban justice, for instance. And then there are a lot of pressure there. Eager level of government, volume and profile of migrants, I will say, must be incorporated. Geopolitical situation, it is not the same a city in the Mediterranean where it is located. In Tunisia, cities' resilience is due also to the geopolitical situation, is due also to the external factor of EU and Tunisia agreement to close the borders, and then cities become much an increasing and resilience and so on. Ideology matters also. There are some literature that speak about left and right wing matters. Proactive cities are generally left. This is a fact. And there are also already a literature on that. And endogenous factors, poverty, segregation, housing, racism, and all these disturbing factors of cohesion and equality also are there from a systemic point of view. The mechanism we deal with how the expression of resilience of the cities and their narrative, and most of the time their narrative prevails to actions. There are many refugee cities that are very few refugees. In fact, Barcelona is one of them. They are built a mechanism of refugees, but very few refugees in comparison to other cities, I will say. And then the narrative prevails, but narrative belong also to resilience there. Practice, regulation, policy innovation are very important. How to deal with policy innovation is directly related to state limits and then the city must innovate, be creative. Some interviewers say imagination is very important. We need a lot of imagination to deal with migrants that are in irregular situation, because the state don't help us for that. The outcome of the state, I will say, bordering processes, and then from this point of view, policy innovation becomes very important. And then the mechanism is very important, and the impact is very important. The impact means for instance, in Marseille, it was very clear in most of the interviews that I did, is that there is a process of decentralization of most of the policies related to migration. There is even some new channels of relation between the city to the state without going to the region, which is quite revolutionary in France, for instance. But the basic idea here is that resilience, pressure, and how to deal with this pressure, with this capacity building in the cities, are some impacts, directly impact to the traditional ways of organizing, I will say, the distribution of power in the state. This is very strong what I say, but I am quite convinced that this is the trend where we are going now. The decentralization and so on, and the city leadership becomes also very important in terms of impact. For those regions, urban regions where there are not a strong democratization, then here democratization and autocracy becomes very important. For Tunisia, it was very clear, as I will show you. And then, of course, there are many debates that I have not time to put there. I have been speaking about the first one, the second one, maybe not the third one, but it is much more public policy, but it is very important. Weak problems and complexity are the difficulties to provide a very clear answer and solution to the problem that city have in terms of migration. There is a literature on that could be important. Urban justice, I already speak about that. Most of the principles regulating the city agenda are related to urban justice. This become very clear in interviews. And of course, when we transfer urban justice, we can go to cosmopolitan Mediterranean regime building. The basic idea here is that you analyze Mediterranean cities and resilience. The first observation that you have is that most of the answers that I receive from policymakers from Tunisia, Marseille, and Barcelona are very, very similar. They are fighting for the same principle of urban justice, whatever context. And then from this point of view, there are some key values that we can infer from urban resilience that may in the Mediterranean may be the ground of a cosmopolitan Mediterranean regime building. Cosmopolitanism means common values. Thinking Mediterranean in terms of common values. Then my argument here is that the city's resilience, the city fighting for capacity building development, are following very similar principles in Tunisia, Marseille, and Barcelona. And these values are values that belong to the regional area where they are developed, the Mediterranean. And then from this point of view, this kind of influence between one and another become prominent, I will say, in the research. And this was one of the findings in the article that I show you. Of course, I have been doing that, as I show you, a pilot studies in 3 very different urban regimes. The fact that they are very different is intentional. It is because I want to apply ideal type methodology to take complementarity of different ways of addressing resilience in 3 very different urban regimes and contexts and so on. I have not time to develop that, but I invite you to go to the article that I show you at the beginning, where I present each city separately and so on and so forth. And the basic idea is of course, to go from the analysis of migration governance capacity to ideal type methodology, and then go to the normative thinking of Mediterranean regime building. And this is the way that I put in conversation the 4 first articles that has been done separately. But I think this is very important to take into account that analyzing migration governance capacity in, for instance, 24 Mediterranean cities is possible. Of course, it's possible to do in 12 countries, doing surveys and interviews and trying to identify the drivers, mechanism, and impact. The ideal type methodology means that you are combining similarity and differences between the drivers, mechanism, and impact in the different urban regimes. And here, from a methodological point of view, I am much more interested to what I call myself homeostasis. Homeostasis is that instead of focusing on changes, I focus on what remains after change. I have much more, I would say, a Parmenidean approach than Heraclitean one in terms of philosophy. I think we are losing a big time in migration studies because we are so obsessed by change, by analyzing the driver of change, that we are we are forgetting what remains after change. And it is here that I put my finger, I will say. I am much more interested to analyze what remains in urban resilience after transformation in terms of different urban regimes, because what remains are related to values, are related to norms, and so on. And then from this point of view, this will allow me to go to the third step, which is thinking about the Mediterranean, of course, from the city point of view, from the city resilience point of view, and the values behind city resilience in the Mediterranean that are very similar, I insist, in Tunisia and Marseille. And I guess for the 24 Mediterranean cities, this will become a pattern, I will say. Most of the values are very similar to them. And then from this point of view, there is a lot to do from this point of view. I will stop there and maybe open to your feedbacks. And I'm inviting you to go to these 4 works for more information, of course. I just here, my main purpose was to link different works that I have been doing on multi-scale analysis at the regional and the city, and just to provide you some arguments to if this could be possible to link the city and the region, and region building from the city point of view could be one of the I will say innovation of the future research.
Thank you.
Sorry,
Thank you very much, Professor.